You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
Around every entry point and every clever attacker, Vectra sees the attacks others can't. How? Vectra has AI on it. Vectra's AI attack signal intelligence tells security teams where to focus, what matters. It wades through thousands of individual threat events so you don't have to. Attackers infiltrating your network? Vectra has AI on it. Attackers compromising your identities? Vectra has AI on it. Vectra AI, the integrated signal powering your XDR. Visit vectra.ai/showme to learn more. That's vectra.ai/showme to learn more. Fortinet confirms a recently rumored zero-day. Officials investigate how restricted chips ended up in products from Huawei. The White House unveils a coordinated AI strategy for national security. Researchers jailbreak LLMs with Deceptive Delight. A new ransomware group exploits vulnerable device drivers. Sensitive documents from a UN trust fund are leaked online. Penn State pays over $1 million to settle allegations of inadequate security in government contracts. CISA adds a SharePoint vulnerability to its Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog. A Microsoft report warns of growing election disinformation. On our Industry Voices segment, Eric Herzog, CMO of Infinidat, discusses merging cybersecurity and cyber storage resilience. And China is shocked that its space program has drawn the attention of foreign spies. It's Thursday, October 24th, 2024. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your Cyberwire Intel Briefing. Happy Thursday, and thank you for joining us here today. For over a week, rumors of a zero-day vulnerability in Fortinet's FortiManager have been circulating online. Yesterday, the flaw, dubbed FortiJump, was officially disclosed by Fortinet, confirming it has been actively exploited since June of 2024. The vulnerability, a missing authentication issue in the FortiGate to FortiManager protocol API, allows attackers to execute commands on FortiManager servers and steal data from managed FortiGate devices. Cybersecurity firm Mandiant revealed that a threat actor, tracked as UNC 5820, has been exploiting the flaw in attacks affecting more than 50 servers. Attackers used their own FortiManager and FortiGate devices with valid certificates to register on vulnerable FortiManager servers. Once connected, even in an unauthorized state, these devices could access sensitive data, including configuration details and hashed passwords of managed devices. Fortinet has released patches and advised customers to restrict IP connections and block unauthorized FortiGate devices. The company's advisory includes mitigation measures, indicators of compromise, and logs to help detect affected systems. Organizations are urged to apply these patches and update credentials to prevent further breaches. So far, no additional malicious activity has been reported since the initial attacks. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, discovered this month that chips it made for a specific client ended up in Huawei Technologies products, potentially violating U.S. sanctions aimed at restricting technology to the Chinese company. TSMC halted shipments to the client in mid-October and notified both the U.S. and Taiwanese authorities. It's unclear if the client was working on behalf of Huawei or where they're based, but the incident raises questions about how Huawei accessed advanced chips despite sanctions. Huawei, blacklisted since 2020, has relied on Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation for chip production. However, recent reports suggest Huawei's latest AI servers contain processors made by TSMC. TSMC had previously stated it stopped all shipments to Huawei in 2020. U.S. officials are now investigating whether third-party distributors played a role in bypassing export restrictions. The development adds pressure on TSMC and the U.S. Bureau of Industry and Security to address potential loopholes in export controls. Researchers from Palo Alto Network's Unit 42 have uncovered a new jailbreak method for large language models called Deceptive Delight, with a success rate of 65% after just 3 interactions. The method was tested on 8,000 cases across 8 anonymized models. It works by asking the LLM to logically connect 2 benign topics with an unsafe one, like linking a family reunion and childbirth to creating a Molotov cocktail. A second step elaborates on these topics, often leading the model to generate harmful content. A third interaction further increases success rates and content harmfulness by over 20%. While LLMs remain resilient even with content filters disabled, Unit 42 found that successful jailbreak attempts can increase the quality and relevance of harmful outputs. To counter such attacks, researchers recommend using robust content filters and clear system prompts to reinforce model boundaries and prevent unsafe outputs. A new ransomware group known as Embargo is developing advanced tools to bypass security defenses, including a method that exploits driver vulnerabilities to disable endpoint detection and response systems. Discovered by researchers at ESET, Embargo first emerged in April of this year and uses a ransomware as a service model, allowing affiliates to keep up to 80% of extortion payments. The group employs 2 primary tools: mDeployer, a custom loader, and MS4 Killer, which targets security systems by exploiting vulnerable drivers. Both tools are written in Rust, a language known for its efficiency and cross-platform capabilities, allowing the malware to target Windows and Linux systems. Embargo's attacks involve rebooting compromised systems into safe mode, disabling most security protections. The group is actively refining its toolkit, with researchers noting multiple versions of these tools in various attacks. Embargo claims victims across several sectors, including healthcare and finance. Cybersecurity researcher Jeremiah Fowler is at it again, this time discovering a major data leak exposing over 115,000 sensitive documents from the UN Trust Fund to End Violence Against Women. The unprotected database, lacking password security, contained 228 gigabytes of data, including personal information, financial records, and victim testimonies. This breach poses severe privacy risks, making individuals vulnerable to identity theft, phishing, and blackmail. The UN Women Agency secured the database after being notified, but the incident underscores the importance of robust cybersecurity for humanitarian organizations. Pennsylvania State University, better known as Penn State, has agreed to pay $1.25 million to settle allegations of failing to comply with cybersecurity requirements in over a dozen contracts with the Department of Defense and NASA. The settlement stems from a qui tam lawsuit filed by Matthew Decker, a former CIO at Penn State's Applied Research Lab, under the False Claims Act. The lawsuit claimed Penn State did not meet the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulations Supplement standards, including implementing required security controls under NIST SP 800-171. The university also allegedly misrepresented its compliance timelines and failed to use a NASA-compliant cloud service provider. As part of the settlement, $250,000 will go to Decker, and $150,000 will cover his legal fees. This case follows similar cybersecurity noncompliance allegations against Georgia Tech. CISA has added a Microsoft SharePoint deserialization vulnerability to its Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog. This flaw, disclosed in July, has a CVSS score of 7.2 and is rated important by Microsoft. It allows unauthorized remote code execution by exploiting deserialized, untrusted data. CISA's inclusion of this vulnerability highlights its potential risk, urging federal agencies to address it under Binding Operational Directive 22-01. Microsoft has warned that Russia, China, and Iran are actively targeting the 2024 U.S. elections with evolving disinformation campaigns. These efforts aim to undermine public trust in election integrity and destabilize U.S. politics. Russian operatives focus on character attacks, including AI-generated content like deepfakes, while China targets congressional races and critics of its policies. Iran is leveraging anti-Israel sentiment. Microsoft's report emphasizes the risks in the final days before and after the election, urging vigilance against these sophisticated foreign influence operations. For further insights into disinformation and misinformation in the U.S. election, be sure to check out our 3-part mini-series Dismiss. Rick Howard sits down with election experts to navigate the 2024 presidential elections information storm, offering a toolkit to help you distinguish between deceptive narratives and legitimate content in today's rapidly shifting election security landscape. Do check it out. Coming up after the break, my conversation with Eric Herzog from Infinidat. We're discussing merging cybersecurity and cyber storage resilience. Stay with us. Calling all InfoSec professionals. Are you dreading the annual scramble to create engaging content for Cybersecurity Awareness Month this October? KnowBe4 has your back with their brand new 2024 Resource Kit, featuring their own award-winning streaming quality show, The Inside Man. This comprehensive kit is a goldmine of free resources designed to both captivate and educate your users. Your users will enjoy free access to the heart-pounding first season of The Inside Man, and for the first time, engage in the Inside Man New Recruits game, where your users become cyber analysts hunting down a malicious insider threat. But there's more. You get access to a resource user guide packed with ideas and messaging, a weekly planner to help you roll out your campaign effortlessly, plus enough supporting training modules and assets to fill a whole month. Cover critical topics including AI and deepfakes, mobile device security, and incident response, all with the free kit. With KnowBe4's kit, say goodbye to outdated, unengaging content. It's all there, ready to go. Learn more at knowbe4.com/cybersecurity-kit. When it comes to ensuring your company has top-notch security practices, things can get complicated fast. Vanta automates compliance for SOC 2, ISO 27001, HIPAA, and more, saving you time and money. With Vanta, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing trust center. Over 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Flow Health, and Quora use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. Our listeners can claim a special offer of $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/cyber. That's VANTA.com/cyber for $1,000 off Vanta. Eric Herzog is CMO at Infinidat, a provider of enterprise storage solutions. I recently sat down with him to discuss cyber storage resilience. Storage and backup is an area that fascinates me, partly because I think on the surface is something that everybody can understand, the notion of you need to store things and you need to back things up. But the devil is in the details. I mean, there's a lot more complexity to it than that when you really dig in.
Absolutely. So when you think about it, the era of traditional data protection methodologies, particularly backup, is kind of passe. You really need to think about next generation data protection and recovery. So the issue is not if you'll suffer a cyber attack, it's when and how often. So you need to be basically accepting that from an enterprise perspective, and the average enterprise is 1,250 cyber attacks per week, they're eventually going to get in. So what you needed to ameliorate that on the data protection side, both for your backup, secondary storage, if you will, and your primary storage. That's the key things you need to look at from a go-forward basis in this next generation of data protection and recovery model that we see happening across enterprises globally.
And when we look at root causes here, I mean, why are organizations finding themselves still vulnerable to having their data held for ransom? I mean, ransomware is not new, and yet here we are.
Well, the bottom line is every time the good guys come up with a solution, the bad guys come up with a way to overcome that solution. It's a very, very traditional, right? Think about something completely different. Speed. I'm old enough, since I'm almost 70, to remember when people thought that, wow, I can get X amount of latency or Y amount of bandwidth on my storage. And today it's 50 times better performance than it was way back when. Same with servers, right? Whatever they thought they needed on the server side or the networking side with Cisco, with HPE, with all the server vendors and all the networking vendors, it just grows exponentially. So when you think about malware and ransomware, it's the same thing, right? In fact, this year, enterprises, not home users now, not you and me, and not SMBs, so not Herzog's Bar and Grill or Eric's Cigar Store, but literally enterprises. The problem is a 9.5 trillion US dollar problem between A, fighting the malware and ransomware, possibly having to deal with the financial repercussions of the malware or ransomware, what you need to do prevent from happening the next time, because that always costs money. So, for example, one of the big ones, just to make it easy, is in the US now, if you're publicly traded, this started October of last year. If you have a cyber attack, within 4 working days, you have to file an SEC public document. So one of the big attacks that happened recently, earlier this year, in Q1, was UHG. And UHG, United Healthcare Group, is one of the largest companies in the world. I think on the Fortune 500 list, they're number 8 or number 9 on the entire planet. And they're filing the impact of this attack was $2.8 billion. So now not all attacks are that dramatic, right? MGM had an attack in Q4, which was also publicly documented, 128 million. But that adds up when you think about the entire world, the fact that attacks are consistent and constant. As soon as the good guys figure out how to overcome it, the bad guys figure out a new way.
When we're talking about cyber storage resilience, what exactly does that entail? What does that encompass? What are the various components that we're talking about here?
Sure. So there are a number of elements you need to think about when you're looking at how you can protect yourself from a cyber resilience play, whether this be on your primary storage or on your secondary storage. So first of all, you want to leverage immutable snapshots. Obviously, snapshots are common in the storage industry, but immutable snapshots cannot be deleted, cannot be altered, and cannot be changed. Second thing you need is what's known as an air gap. So in primary and secondary storage, it's a logical air gap. In this case, it separates the management plane and the data plane. And your logical air gap should be local, right, in data center A, remote in data center B, aka going from A to B, or both. And what that does is separate the management plane from the data plane. The third thing you need is a fenced forensic environment. The average dwell time that malware or ransomware is inside of your wall, if you will, inside the over the wall, past the moat with the alligators and piranha in it, is 200 days. 200 days. So you want to make sure that even though you've created immutable snapshots, you didn't create a immutable snapshot of malware or ransomware. So you create a fenced forensic environment after you know you've had an attack, to scan and get what's referred to as a known good copy before you recover. You want to have near instantaneous recovery. So how fast can I recover? So I've got a known good copy now. How fast can I recover? Can that be a minute or less? Could it be 20 minutes or less? Is it a day? Is it 2 days? How long does it take? And then one of the newer things that people are seeing is integration of storage with data center-wide cybersecurity packages. So you look at SIM or SOAR, which are the primary types of data center cybersecurity packages that have nothing to do with storage. If you can integrate your storage to that, when something like a Microsoft Sentinel or IBM QRadar senses an attack, then your storage can automatically take action. Remember, those data center-wide cybersecurity packages aren't designed for storage. They're designed for the entire data center. So you need to take definite action on the storage side to help shrink what security guys call the threat window. And then the last thing is you probably want to leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning to scan part of your storage to see if there is malware or ransomware. It can be used as an early warning system, just like the data center-wide cybersecurity packages do. And by the way, you could have your cybersecurity scanning software through an API reach out to the SIM or SOAR software. So you can actually go from the storage to the data center-wide cybersecurity packages. And the second thing is, if you do have an attack and they get through, you, on your forensic environment, either need to call the application owners, right? The Oracle guys, the SAP guys, the Mongo guys, or you could use AI and ML to scan your potential candidates to get to a known good copy. So those are the 6 key elements you need to have a comprehensive cybersecurity strategy from a storage perspective. That's just from the storage perspective. That's independent of the things they need to do at the edge, they need to do in their core networking, their core servers, and what they need to do at the application and workload level. So this is just looking at it from a storage perspective.
Well, there's a couple things that come to mind in what you've shared here. I mean, I think a lot of folks have this fantasy in their minds of, like I imagine, Dr. Frankenstein's lab, where if I have a problem with my storage, someone hits me with ransomware, there's going to be a big scissor switch on the wall, that I can pull down and instantly switch over to my backup and continue running as if nothing has ever happened. To what degree is that notion a fantasy, or are we in a world where that's a possibility?
So that's very old school, old world. Cyber criminals are not what you see in a gangster movie. Cyber criminals are graduates of some of the biggest universities on this planet, but for some reason, instead of getting a job in regular industry at a major software company or whatever, they decide to be criminals. Or they're people who didn't go to the university, but they're brilliant. They're hackers, whether they be college educated or not. And they know how to manipulate systems. They know how to use AI and ML for the bad guys. Remember, as much as we can use AL and MI for the good side, they can use the same technology for the bad side to come up with better ways to get into your enterprise. So the smart cyber criminals don't only capture the primary storage, but the secondary storage. They know people are going to back up. They're tech guys. They understand the process. So they know that data is going to be backed up. Data could be replicated to a secondary site for disaster recovery purposes. Well, guess what? You could always recover that, right? You may lose some data depending on how often you move the data from data center 1 to data center 2 to avoid that hurricane, cyclone, earthquake, fire, flood, right? Whatever it is you're trying to avoid. That said, they know that. So they know they need to capture the secondary data set copies as well as primary. If they're a smart cyber criminal, that's exactly what they do. So just saying I can go back to my backup doesn't make logical sense, because the master cyber criminals know all about IT. They understand how data flows work. They understand from the application through the server infrastructure across the network into the storage, and then obviously to a backup or an archive play. So the smart cyber criminals are attacking at every possible vector. They're attacking the server infrastructure, the storage infrastructure, the backup infrastructure, the server infrastructure, and for certain things, maybe even edge, right? If I'm a giant telco, I need to be worried about if I've got edge detection on all my cell towers to help me manage my cell towers better. What a great place to attack, because the cyber criminal probably thinks, well, those things are out there, they're remote, there's thousands to millions of cell towers for any one of the cellular telcos across the planet. I'll just attack there. And then once I get in, I'll weave my way into the servers and the Oracle apps and the SAP apps and their financial apps and all their other apps. So, they're sophisticated enough to understand the IT model, the IT infrastructure, if you will, the map of IT, and know that they need to attack at multiple vectors in order to be effective. Otherwise, they can't hold you for ransom or destroy your data, which is, of course, what malware does.
So what are your recommendations then? I mean, if I'm a chief information security officer, and me and my team, we're responsible for the security of the organization. When it comes to merging this notion of cyber storage resilience with what we're doing with cybersecurity, what are your words of wisdom here?
Well, first thing is, you need to realize that storage needs to be part of your global enterprise cybersecurity strategy. If you leave it out, it's akin to going on vacation, leaving your doors not only unlocked, but your doors and windows literally wide open, and posting on every social media venue you possibly post on, hey, I'm on vacation for 2 weeks, come steal my stuff. The most valuable data of global enterprises is sitting on their global enterprise storage. So you need to make sure that the elements I discussed earlier on, those 6 elements of what you need from a cyber resilience and cyber storage recovery perspective are in the storage itself. Then you need to make sure that you include in your cybersecurity strategy and planning that storage is important. For example, if storage can communicate with your data center-wide cybersecurity packages, that's a big advantage. I would argue you need to practice recovery, right? Most global Fortune 500s, they practice disasters, whether that be a fire, since I'm a native Californian, an earthquake, and I've been in several. But the number one cause of data loss, other than humans, right? You could accidentally delete a PowerPoint or Word file. But other than that, the number one cause of data loss is fire. Then you've got things like flood, hurricanes, cyclones, right? That happens all the time. And as much as data centers can be a Cat 5, supposedly battle hardened against that, that's not going to top it when that hurricane or that cyclone or that tsunami is going at 140 miles an hour and blows the top right off the building, which happens, of course. So you need to make sure that the CISO includes cyber storage resilience and recovery as part of the overall strategy. B, they need to practice just the way they'd practice for a fire or a hurricane or an earthquake, that there's a disaster. Cyber attack is a disaster. It's just a different kind from the natural disasters that people think about. So you practice that. If you're practicing your recovery from a hurricane or earthquake once a month, then, why don't you do a cyber recovery while you're going through that process? Or if you do it once a quarter, the same thing. Early in the quarter, maybe you do a natural disaster recovery, and then later in the quarter, you do one as if you had a cyber attack, so that everybody understands what they need to do, from the application owners, from all the infrastructure teams, right? There's a server team, there's a network team, there's a storage team in these large global enterprises. What are they going to do? Because if there's a CISO, there's obviously security teams, and there's virtualization teams and container teams. What does each team need to do? Which, by the way, if there is a real hurricane or tornado, that's exactly what they practice. How do they recover? How do they get everything set up? You do the same thing as if there's been a cyber attack.
Our thanks to Eric Herzog from Infinidat for joining us. If you'd like more information, we'll have a link in our show notes. The IT world used to be simpler. You only had to secure and manage environments that you controlled. Then came new technologies and new ways to work. Now, employees, apps, and networks are everywhere. This means poor visibility, security gaps, and added risk. That's why Cloudflare created the first-ever connectivity cloud. Visit cloudflare.com to protect your business everywhere you do business. And finally, our Tminus Space Daily Desk informs us that China is now claiming that its space program is under relentless attack by foreign spies. An audacious and laughable assertion, given China's own well-documented efforts to siphon off technology from other nations for years. This latest warning, coming from China's Ministry of State Security, accuses foreign agents of trying to steal space-related information, supposedly jeopardizing its peaceful ambitions in space. The irony is thick. China, with its history of espionage targeting aerospace programs worldwide, is now playing the victim. And that's the Cyberwire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K Cyberwire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K makes it easy for companies to optimize your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your teams smarter. Learn how at n2k.com. This episode was produced by Liz Stokes. Our mixer is Trey Hester, with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Our executive editor is Brandon Karp. Simone Petrella is our president. Peter Kilpie is our publisher. And I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Quick question. Do your end users always, and I mean always without exception, work on company-owned devices and IT-approved apps? I didn't think so. So my next question is, how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps and devices? 1Password has an answer to this question: Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM can't touch. And it's now available to companies with Okta and Microsoft Entra and in beta for Google Workspace customers. Check it out at 1password.com/cyberwire. That's 1password.com/cyberwire.